me for planning a migration from Sage Abra to Sage HRMS. My name is Joe Rotella, and I'm joined today by Lori Garabietta, one of our HRMS consultants. I'm calling in here from Columbus, Ohio, where it was a very brisk 10 degrees last night. And Lori, what's it like where you are?
Well, actually, we are a nice, 53 degrees, sunshiny and beautiful.
Now, just checking, Lori, can you see my slides okay? Are we good to go?
I'm seeing the planning for migration Sage Abra and Sage HRMS slide only.
Uh-oh.
There we are. I see it. We're good to go.
Perfect. Lori and I have done this before, and believe it or not, we've had times where the slide has been stuck, so we want to be sure you're seeing the slides today. Don't panic about taking a ton of notes. If you want a copy of today's slide deck, we are more than happy to send it to you. So let's talk a little bit about the stage, about where we're at today and why we're having today's webinar. First of all, don't panic. If you can leave today with one key message, this is it. Don't panic. There's no gun to your head. There is no, oh my gosh, we have to move to Sage HRMS right away today, get it started immediately. Now, the good news is there are very, very good reasons to consider or plan for a change, but it's not something that you have to feel panicked or pressured about. Now, before we even go into that scenario, I'd like to put up a quick poll here and find out what are your primary concerns about moving from Sage Abra to Sage HRMS. So you can select all that apply there. We've got cost benefit of an upgrade. Obviously, there's many folks here who will be wondering, well, hey, I'm sure the costs associated with this, what are the benefits and is it worth it? Maybe you have to convince that to your executive team, so you're wondering what the return on investment is and how you could show that. Maybe you're concerned that there'll be problems with payroll. Maybe you're worried about internal resource requirements or even technical constraints. So if you could take a minute to answer as many of those as you'd like. We have about 57% of you out there have voted. I'm going to get it up a little bit higher. Come on, you see that poll? It's easy. Click as many boxes as you'd like. We're up to 70%. Boy, there are some clear winners coming in here, so let's see what happens. 78%, a couple more votes, and I'm ready to share. There we go, 83%. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Let's see what our numbers are. We have 84% are concerned about the cost benefit of upgrade. 68% have technical constraints they're worried about. Then we go down to problems with payroll and internal resource requirements. So that should give you a good idea there of what some of your peers are worried about. Let's see if we can put some of those concerns aside. Let's talk a little bit about the current state of Abra Suite and FoxPro. Basically, in 2012, Sage Software announced that Abra Suite will no longer be sold to new customers. Now, Sage does continue to support Abra Suite today and plans to for the foreseeable future. They're continuing to release bug fixes and quarterly tax updates, but they are not investing in any major enhancements to Abra Suite. There is no specific end-of-life date for Abra Suite. So basically the product's there, they still fix bugs, they still do those quarterly tax updates, but they're not investing any new resources, they're not adding any new features and so on. And new folks who are just getting onto using HR software from Sage can't purchase Abra Suite. The challenge comes with Microsoft. Microsoft Visual FoxPro, or VFP, is the underlying technology used by Abra Suite, and that is now a discontinued product. Visual FoxPro 9, which was released in December of 2004, so we're talking 10 years ago, was the last commercial release of Visual FoxPro. Microsoft ended mainstream support for that version on January 12, 2010, so just about 4 years ago. Extended support from Microsoft is only available through January of 2015, so just a few more months, via the Developer Tools Lifecycle Support Plan, which is a paid support plan. So when we look at the big picture here from a Sage Abra Suite perspective, Sage Abra Suite is there. It's running on Visual FoxPro. Sage is supporting it with bug fixes, but no new features. The challenge is that Microsoft discontinued that underlying technology 10 years ago. They discontinued support for it 4 years ago. And after January 15th, then you still can't even buy support from Microsoft for that underlying technology. So what do? The new solution here is Sage HRMS. Sage HRMS is really the flagship HRMS for Sage North America, and it's the product line that was developed to replace Abra Suite. It's based on a Microsoft SQL database, and Sage HRMS is similar to Abra Suite in many respects, except for Payroll. That's an entirely new module that was rewritten completely when they went to the SQL environment. Sage HRMS is the product that's being licensed to new customers right now, and it's really the focus for any new product development and enhancements. Sage is really encouraging Abra Suite users to seriously consider migrating to Sage HRMS. The benefits of migration, well, there's lots, and some of them, admittedly, are hard for you to put a dollar figure on if you're trying to calculate return on investment. But remember a best practice from SHRM, something that I've spoken about, I think, as a general session at SHRM for 10 years now, how to write a business case. We need to understand that there's more than just a financial return on investment when we invest in anything, say technology in this case. Besides financial return, we have to look at process returns as well as cultural returns. So let's talk a little bit about these benefits of migration. First, you're going to be on a current technology when you're on Microsoft SQL. You're going to be very hard-pressed right now to find anybody who knows FoxPro. If you were to post a job posting for somebody who knows FoxPro, you're definitely not getting folks who are using the very latest and greatest technology. Remember, it was discontinued 10 years ago. So when you're on SQL, that really is the current technology. That's where you're going to start getting new releases of Sage HRMS. It's where you're going to start to see enhancements and features, because that's where Sage is investing their developer resources. You're going to reduce potential support issues. Now, if you're running on Abra Suite right now, it's smooth sailing. You're good to go. If it's a bug inside of Sage Abra Suite, we know we can turn to Sage to get that fixed. But if the problem turns out to be something underlying in FoxPro, well, there's nothing we can really do about it, right? That's Microsoft, and even paid support ends there in January. SQL is a much more secure environment for your data. There's an automatic backup in SQL. SQL Server includes that feature to help make sure that your database is always backed up. SQL also prevents unauthorized database access. So it's a lot trickier, say, to break into a SQL database than it is to access those flat files that are created by FoxPro. SQL is also a lot more efficient. It's a lot more performant. So because of the power of the SQL database, you're going to notice faster search results, faster report computations. And of course, there's all the benefits of using a SQL platform. SQL is scalable. It can handle millions of records and database transitions, database requests. It's also a standard platform out there, so you're going to find a lot more standard reporting or workflow or alert kind of tools that will work on top of a SQL platform. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lori, who can share some of her experiences, really comparing what you experience in Abra Suite with what you see when you're on Sage HRMS. So Lori, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. I have just a little bit. I've been working with the Sage SQL platform here for about 3 years doing implementation. So I have seen a lot of these concerns here for this payroll validation. One of the largest ones that you will benefit from is a little bit about what Joe was saying because of the SQL platform. The main issue that many of you, if you have not experienced it, most of you probably have, is the processing. If the processing gets interrupted, you can get those mysterious postings, earnings, taxes, and deductions, the double ups that sometimes you don't find until the end of a quarter when you're trying to do some balancing. And because of the SQL platform that the Sage HRMS is in, you will not ever have to worry about getting that type of issue within the SQL platform. If it gets interrupted, there's also rollback functionality that your IT can set up to roll back every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, depending on how you want to do it. Also, the strange things that you don't know about, for months, as far as those problems can be fixed immediately and identified, so that you can move on and know exactly where you are at any point. One of the great things about it is there is in Sage HRMS and Abra, you have to do your quarter end and then you do your final quarter end processing. In the new system, there is no trial quarter and final quarter close. Because of the back-end database, everything is just you run your reports immediately and you're done. Because of the FoxPro, it had to carry like a parallel database, the pre-trial and then the final, so that at any point in time you can make those changes. Also, one of the other ones is editing any employee or employer year-to-date information in the Abra was always pretty cumbersome. You'd kind of have to trick it back into what quarter you were looking for. You couldn't predate or go backwards to data check or anything to fix anything. Well, within this one, all the editing is very easy through transaction history. You're allowed to post your checks, check dates before and after current dates that you've issued, so you're no longer under that restriction of having to always have your pay date a forward date and not move backward. You can actually go in and put in edits into the first quarter. Even as we sit now into the fourth quarter, you can put in transaction histories for that one. Joe, you want to go to the next one here? So that was a little bit, kind of got ahead of us there for processing the payroll on the date, so you can use the current date or after that. And the tax reporting, requires you to create files to provide for your agency basis. The new Sage HRMS uses the AccPac tax filing service. It helps you to coordinate all of your tax filing reporting in one area. And one of the other items is that you can see the past quarter. So before, when you were looking for information or looking up an employee, you could see in Abra the current quarter and maybe go back one quarter. With the new type of SQL database structure, you're able to go back monthly, quarterly, year-to-date. As long as your history is in there, you can go back and compare employees' wages from the first quarter of 2010 to the first quarter of 2014 with just a click of a button. So it makes the reporting a lot easier and a lot more structured to be able to get the information out of it. Also, the ACH file, once in Abra you've created your ACH files, you are able to recreate that file at any time. So I know that was an issue a lot of times when maybe there was something wrong with the ACH file and it needed to be redone. Then it was kind of a manual entry, or you're working with the banks to do that. In the new system, the ACH files can be recreated and resent to the bank, so there's not a lot of confusion or anything else within that. So that's just a couple of the payroll validations that you can look forward to migrate into that Sage HRMS. Joe?
Lori, do you want to talk about functional improvements, or you want me to do those? It's up to you.
I can talk a little bit about that too, if you'd like. We've just got some basic functional improvement here with the software. We have the new step rates on the HR side for the new functionality. The process is actually going to examine those rules, and you'll be able to apply them across the group of people rather than having to do it manually or per person basis. The views, the monthly, the quarterly, and the year-to-date history is available to view online as far back as you process. That's kind of a little bit about what I mentioned before, being able to see that information. You can see it on a date range, and you can see it as year-to-date. The reporting, all the industry standard reports and business analysis tools are all within there in the SQL. You still have access to the Crystal reports that are available for use. And the integration, since the HRMS-based industry is the SQL, the integration opportunities are easier. So it's easier for you to manipulate a SQL backend database with things called SQL scripts, that we can make the system go above and beyond items that you would normally be cornered into with Abra. The SQL allows us to do a lot of different things and makes the system a little bit more customizable to the actions that you desire from it. We talked a little bit earlier about the tax filing with the AccPac. It is a single platform with all taxing reporting. And then we have a couple of little time-off enhancements, better integration between the time-off requests and accruals within the system. We have some additional seniority tiers that have been added into the new system, and the availability to use different dates in calculating seniority was very structured as it is in Abra. We have I think about 2 more dates that we can use. We can use specific dates, or we can use the standards, original hires, all those other items with that too. All right, the next one. Payroll processing improvements. So it's more streamlined, so it eliminates that final pay run. There is no final pay. It eliminates the trial quarter close we talked about before. Everything within the system goes by the check date. So when we put a transaction history, which is what's used to change any type of information for an employee, like third-party sick pay or moving expenses kind of at the year end when you want to increase their taxable wages, we can put that information in to run those trial quarter closes, and we don't have to run the additional information for them because those transaction histories hit on those dates. There is no final quarter close. It's just a matter of running the reports and running the taxes and sending them off either yourself or through the Atrix tax filing services. The increased flexibility to modify the employee data, the time restrictions and transfers between the pay groups is eliminated. So, you know how if you were going to go in the process to do a payroll and you were going to needed to move somebody, it restricted you from doing that until after that was run. There's no longer any restrictions for that. So it has actually opened that up a little bit more. So those types of restrictions will allow you to expand even your processes, maybe to increase them a little bit so that you can get payrolls out a little bit faster. And that's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the project plan at 100,000 feet when you're considering an upgrade. Of course, first thing you're going to want to do is review any affected business processes. Now, that's really not anything that you do by yourself, right? Planning is critical for a successful migration to Sage HRMS, and we really want to look at all business processes that are upstream from this, that are utilize this or depend on Abra Suite. We're going to want to look at those. And we really want to look for opportunities for improvement. It could be business processes that are not currently impacted by Abra Suite. We want to look at and see if they will be when you go to Sage HRMS. We want to see if there's anything configured in Abra Suite that we would change to better support your business processes. But again, this isn't something you do alone. You can do this with your consultant from Delphia Consulting. We specialize in really listening to your needs, finding out exactly what your situation is, and trying to understand exactly what's going to be impacted when you go to Sage HRMS. Next, we're going to want to establish that technical environment. Sage HRMS requires a SQL server to house all of its data. What was once in a data folder in Abra Suite is now going to be a database in Microsoft SQL Server. We do recommend the use of a test environment for Sage HRMS. If a formal one isn't feasible, then the future production environment can be used for testing until we get to a final cutover point. As part of that initial installation of Sage HRMS, data from Abra Suite HR, attendance and train will be upsized into the SQL database. That includes both the data and the configuration options. Then we're going to go ahead and configure Sage HRMS and any of its modules, including Payroll. So the configurations of Abra Suite HR, attendance and train, will be migrated from Abra Suite to Sage HRMS as part of this upsizing. That's what we call this when we go from FoxPro to SQL, upsizing process. Payroll, employee self-service, benefits enrollment, any new modules will need to be configured just like as if they're brand new. Abra Alerts will likely need to be replaced with Sage Alerts and Workflow. That's an entirely different product. Abra Alerts works with FoxPro, Sage Alerts and Workflow works with SQL. Any endorsed solutions like Sage HRMS HR Actions or Sage HRMS Cyber Recruiter will also require some degree of reconfiguration. You may also end up having to look at any interfaces to or from other applications that may require some degree of reconfiguration. So once all that's configured, then we're going to convert your HRMS and payroll data. That's really all part of that same kind of process, part of the whole timing right there. Train your users on how to use the new system, and then complete parallel payroll testing. So you're going to run payroll in two places, in your current Abra Suite environment And in your Sage HRMS environment, we're going to make sure that the outputs are identical. That's the best way to make sure that everything was converted okay. When you're all done, we'll finally go ahead and deploy. What's cool about this is that we've done this with so many folks. We've developed an automated migration tool to help migrate that data from Abra Suite to SQL. In other words, we've developed that upsizing tool. We found that it's really a much better way to do this sort of migration. It eliminates duplicate data in 2 different systems. It means you don't have to do a lot of stuff by hand, and of course we know anytime you do stuff manually, you do introduce some degree of error. That's always possible. So here we have a tool that handles the bulk of this for us. It also compares each line of a paycheck to parallel in SQL. So you don't have to do that necessarily visually. We've got tools to do that as well. Because we've invested in this automated tool and used it many, 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 many times, so we're confident in it. The bugs are worked out of it. It's very smooth sailing at this point. It shortens the project duration and thereby the cost. It also reduces project risks and just provides an overall better experience during that whole upsizing process. Now, Lori, I think you've been through this many times with folks, so perhaps you'd like to share a little bit of your insights. What's it like to go through with an upsizing, a conversion from Abra Suite to Sage HRMS? Then we'll talk a little bit about what it takes to get started and take questions.
That sounds great. And yes, I have. I have been implementing the SQL product. This is probably my 3rd year for this. It is, I find that a lot of people do like a lot of the new things that are on it. Like with anything, it is change. So you do have to reset the entire payroll systems up. So some people have actually taken it as an opportunity to kind of clean things up, to look at the payroll in a different perspective and get the things out of it that they might have been missing before. We do a lot of that. We have a lot of planning meetings where we discuss these types of things. Our object is to make sure that we don't implement you into a box so that, in 5 years from now you want to expand out in a different direction or open up to something else and add, that we haven't done that and put you in a corner. So we want to talk a little bit about it, and we spend a lot of time talking and making sure. Now, with anything, it is change, and change as far as payroll, we have to reset that up again. So it does cause a little bit of anxiety. I know payroll people. I'm the payroll person. I've done payroll as a user for 15 years with several companies. But because myself and the other consultants here at Delphia and on staff, we have all had experiences on the user side. So we understand what it's like to go through these changes and the things that you need. One of the things that we pay a lot of attention to is that when we do go through the actual training and the payroll processes, you walk away with a how to process payroll book that has screenshots, exactly what you need to do, where you need to click, what it should look like, what your outcome should be. I know myself as a payroll person, I'm a visual person, so I try to make sure, like all of my other colleagues here, that you understand from a visual perspective. So there are differences that are not exactly the same with Sage HRMS, such as some of the reporting tools, but they are getting better. So we want to make sure that we get you what you need and make sure that you get the end results that you need through that. So we just take it slow. Yeah.
Lori, question about, you mentioned reporting there. For folks who do have Crystal reports that are currently set up and pointing at fields in FoxPro, what happens to those Crystal reports when they go to Sage HRMS?
That is a good question, Joe. What's going to happen to them, the current system, the Sage HRMS, the HR, and the payroll, are actually running off of 2 different databases now. There's the HR database that is currently in the Sage HRMS exactly the same as what is in Abra, but because we have to set up a new payroll system, we have new payroll databases. We have new information, new field names, things like that. So we do have to spend some time going in and redoing all of the payroll reports that you currently have so that we can map them to the names of the new ones. This is done this way for those of you who are processing payroll and your HR people are constantly having to get out of the system while you're doing payroll in Abra so that it doesn't have any type of issues. Because of the information is in 2 different databases, the HR people can continue on doing what they need to do on a day-to-day basis without interrupting or causing any issues to the payroll side. So because of that, again, we will have to go ahead and recreate those payroll ones for you.
And there is no automatic conversion of those crystal reports. They're aimed at different fields. They're fields in FoxPro rather than tables in SQL. So I imagine you'd end up tweaking any of your custom reports. Of course, Sage comes with reports out of the box. They're going to work fine. But your custom ones, I'd say, will likely need tweaking.
That's correct. So that is something that we do discuss with you when we go through the needs analysis and going through taking a look at what reports you do have and what would be required to get those reports into the new system and move forward with it. So that is part of that needs analysis that we move through. Other than that, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, from an end user perspective, your employees are out there, and many of you using employee self-service, ESS. I think the ESS experience is going to remain the same for those folks. The underlying platform may be different, but ESS runs on SQL today, and I imagine that the SQL experience, whether or not it's aimed at FoxPro or Sage HRMS, folks really aren't going to be impacted by that.
No, they're really not impacted in the ESS area, in the HR area. The only thing that is drastically impacted is the actual payroll, the setup, the reporting, and things like that because of the new database.
And of course, when we talk about reports, there are so many reports that come with Sage HRMS. It's likely there's an existing report that'll meet your needs compared to one that you might have done by hand, built your own when you were in the Sage Abra suite environment. So we'll look at those. There may be some that need no work, or some we could say, hey, we've got one out of the box that does the same thing. So this is why you want to meet carefully with your solutions architect here from Delphia Consulting, so that we can really evaluate where you are today, where you want to be, and what's the gap in between.
That's right. That's correct.
Now, for ESS, the key difference, there will be differences in the W4 and the W2. They're not there in ESS in Sage HRMS. They are for Abra Suite. So that's another thing we'd want to look at, how you're going to use that, have a similar capability. How can we get you to the same point if you go to Sage HRMS?
That's correct.
So thank you, Lori. Let's talk a little bit about what it's like to get started. First, you're going to want to think if an upgrade makes sense. And again, this isn't something you have to go through by yourself. You've joined us this afternoon for about 30 minutes where we talked about planning a migration from Sage Abra to Sage HRMS. But certainly every case is different, and that's what we're here for. We want you to reach out to us and say, hey, can we at least talk about it? Can we start the conversation? Now, we may decide mutually, hey, this isn't good for you. Maybe it's not good for you right now. It's something you want to plan. But I think the first step is to make sure we really understand your environment, your needs, what have you done, what customizations do you have, what reports are you using, are you doing anything with ESS, what functionality in ESS, for example, W4s and W2s. Sit down and talk that through, and you want to do that with your solutions architect here at Delphia. Then we're going to turn around and give you a cost estimate. Of course, if you decide to go forward, we'll establish a project team and then a timeline and a project plan, and then off we go. But it may be something that you say, hey, I want to do all this research right now. I want to get that cost estimate, but it's something you have to plan based on your fiscal year. Maybe you need help presenting a business case to your executive team to decide what is the cost-benefit analysis here. And again, remember, when we look at return on investment, we want to look at more than just a financial return. This certainly is going to impact your processes and perhaps even your culture. If you've got it all set up today that, oh, I'm going to run payroll, everybody out, that's definitely something that's somewhat cultural as well as process-driven. We're going to want to look at all those areas: cultural investment and return, process return, and financial return. And that's something we can do with your solutions architect. So when we started the beginning of the session, we put up that little poll and we said, hey, what are your concerns? And 84% of you were the cost-benefit analysis of an upgrade. And then we dropped down to 68% of technical constraints, then down to problems with payroll. And of course, I was kind of surprised the lowest one on the list here was executive buy-in. So we've talked a little bit about the benefits of an upgrade. We've talked about some of the technical stuff. I'm wondering where folks are right now in this process. So let's see if we get rid of this poll. I'm curious if you could share in the chat room, the public chat room, what are any of your thoughts right now? Anything coming to mind? Any questions that you have about what you've heard? What are your initial thoughts about, hey, I think we should give this some thought? The key, our underlying message is don't panic. We're here to help you. Sage is here to help you. Sage still fixes bugs in Abra Suite, so they still do quarterly updates. Just no investment in future features. The problem comes with the underlying technology, which Microsoft discontinued 10 years ago. If there's a problem at that level, then even after January 15th, there's nothing we can do to convince Microsoft to fix that. Any questions? So we've got a bunch of questions coming in. And I'm going to invite Kelly Jo to join us as well. So Kelly Jo, I think I've upgraded you to be a panelist. Hopefully you can see some of the questions that are coming in, and I wonder if you'd be able to speak to them as well as give folks a little bit of an introduction as to your role. So Kelly Jo, I think you might be on mute. Oh, she's on a microphone. The microphone isn't working. So that's not going to work. Kelly Jo is our new Director of Sales, and she comes with years of experience as a solution architect. So I was hoping she could chime in here with some of her questions. So we did have someone ask about security for payroll as example, or security in general. SQL is a much, much, much more secure environment than FoxPro. FoxPro is flat file tables. They are fairly easy to decrypt if somebody was really determined to do that. SQL has layer upon layer of security protections built right in. So that's a significant improvement we've seen, the area of security and performance. Remember, FoxPro development stopped 10 years ago, so there's been quite a lot of work done in the security and performance space, which makes SQL a much better product when we really look at those two platforms side by side. So I think the answer there, Rob, is for sure. Security is much better. We'll see performance improvements as well. Let's see, is payroll more secure? So I'm trying to read all the questions as we go through. Lori, do you see any of the questions in there?
I see Russell T. here. He's asking about Abra without payroll to the HRMS. Yes, you can just bring in the Sage HRMS SQL for that. I did see a question up here in regarding to the ACA reporting requirements. They do have something, I do not have a lot, Kelly Jo actually has more, but they do have a reporting group that will handle all the ACA reporting requirements in the Sage HRMS. It's just an additional set of reports for that, so that will be covered with it. Let me see here. How many conversions?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, Lori. I don't know if you know.
Well, I know I've had at least 15, and there's 5 or 6 more of us who have had at least that minimum. That's probably just this year. So that we've done quite a few conversions with the Sage HRMS.
And I think you'll see that's part of the reason we developed the automated migration tool. Now, it's not like we have a tool, we push one button and boom, you're done. Of course, there's human analysis that's involved in there, as well as understanding everything else that goes out beyond the scope of the tool. But the whole purpose of the tool was we've done so many of these, we've said, hey, we repeat this process over and over. We want to remove or reduce the risk of mistakes, human error, and make sure we cover all the bases. And that's part of the reason we came out with that automated tool. We also want to mention, remember, Microsoft discontinued Visual FoxPro 10 years ago. So the newer computers, new operating systems, may not even have drivers that support Visual FoxPro. So you could end up in a situation where your IT department is updating your hardware, and as a result, the hardware doesn't even have the drivers necessary to run Visual FoxPro, and you're not going to be able to get those from Microsoft. So I do want to point that out. I think Kelly Jo has joined us and gotten her phone working. So are you out there, Kelly Jo?
I am. Hi.
Woo!
Hey, I just wanted to add into what Lori was talking about regarding the question with the ACA reporting, just briefly. And this is something you can certainly reach out to the Delphia team, and we can go into it a little bit more in depth. There is a tool available right now called My Workforce Analyzer. It's available to clients that are either running the Suite or the HRMS version that have HR and Payroll, and it allows you to bring in that data on your employees' hours worked, the health benefits you are offering them, and being able to do some modeling for pay and play, look at your look-back period, and determine when some employees that have been part-time may be reaching that threshold. As it sits today, it does not have the 1094, 1095 reporting, but we understand that that is coming and will be available for clients, and that they are working very hard to get that system to be able to upload a hours worked file from other payrolls. But for now, it's only Suite. You got to have both HR and Payroll and SQL version of Sage HRMS with HR and Payroll. So reach out to us if you'd like a little bit more information on that, and we'll be happy to get that to you. Were there any other questions, Joe, or anything that I could help with?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see them in the questions window, KJ.
Nope.
I think I've got, okay, so I've got a bunch there. Is there something similar to Abra Alerts? I think we had mentioned that at one point during the conversation today. There's Sage HRMS Alerts and Workflow, which is
correct,
comparable, I would say, to the Alerts product.
It's actually a step up, and if you own the Abra Alerts, you are entitled to the license for the Sage Alerts and Workflow, the Alerts module, complementary, but it is a new implementation. The user interface is much more friendly to use, and it also has a component that will allow you to automate the generation and delivery of crystal reports with this tool. So based on triggers, changes in data, you may need to generate a report, or if maybe the Director of Human Resources wants a ranked salary list in their inbox, the first day of each month, we're able to do that with that tool as well. So again, that's part of what we explored during the needs analysis, but if you own Abra Alerts, you are entitled to one database connection with that Alerts and Workflow at no charge, but there will be some consulting.
Now, we did have one of our solutions architects chime in and mention that one of our conversions was for a client who had 16 years of payroll history, and that conversion was successful, and they're up and running. So that's another feather, I guess, to put in our portfolio cap. Russell wants to know, does HRMS cost more than Abra? Well, Russell, I guess the one way to look at it is, since you can't buy Abra right now, it's incredibly rare, and you could say it's priceless. So if that's the case, it's certainly less expensive. It's really impossible to compare the cost of the two because Abra's not available anymore, right?
Well, that's true, but let me put it this way. So if you own a 94 Dodge pickup truck and you went to go get a new Dodge pickup truck, they're not going to give you the brand new one for free. What Sage has done is they've made the pricing very attractive for the upgrade, so that clients that are existing on the Visual FoxPro and current on support pay a very low one-time software upgrade fee. Okay, so it's very cost-effective from that. There are some services associated with that, and again, when you talk to your solutions architect, we'll map all of those out.
David asks, what's the projected end-of-life date for Abra Suite? To the best of my knowledge, Sage has never published an end-of-life date, so I'm uncomfortable speculating what one could be. KJ, Lori, have you heard any rumors that you're comfortable speculating on? I know there's no official end-of-life date, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're correct, Joe. We've never been told that. Again, it comes down to perhaps operating systems coming not having those visual FoxPro drivers out there. They do have a large enough client base still on that, I would hope for a couple more years we're definitely going to see upgrades, but they have not shared updates, payroll updates, but they have not shared an actual date with us.
Some of the questions we also have coming in is, can I bring Abra up to date without payroll? So can I leave my payroll as is and just do an upgrade from Abra Suite to Sage HRMS? And what about the computer equipment required for HRMS?
So if I'm understanding that, is the question that they want to upgrade the HR to SQL, but
yep,
not,
and leave the payroll the same.
Yeah, unfortunately that doesn't work. Yeah, we would have to upgrade the whole system, or your new licensing wouldn't include any payroll. You could keep your old information, but yeah, not good there. What was the next one?
What a computer equipment? Well, when you go to Sage HRMS, you're going to need to be running SQL Server someplace. It's possible your organization already has a SQL Server box that you could host an additional database on. You may want to have a whole other box just for SQL Server for this, a dedicated box. The actual requirements for that box really depend on data and number of transactions. That's something your solutions architect could work with you on to make sure that you really understand the technical footprint that's required for the upgrade.
Yeah, we do have a couple of page technical requirements document that we're happy to share with you, so please reach out and we'll get that to you.
How about issues with the benefits module? Anything that you're aware of?
Do they mean the online benefits enrollment or just the benefits within Sage HR?
Yeah, they just said any issues with benefits module online.
Online. They've made some improvements to the online benefits enrollment on the last two releases, the 2012 and the 2014 version. Again, we would need to discuss with you if you have experienced some problems. We could look at those release notes and see if those are solved. I will tell you that with one of the latest releases that they made some requirements as far as product grouping, and we've developed, our team, Lori and her colleagues have developed a really great best practices configuration. So it involves how your plans are named within the core system and how they're shown for the open enrollment as well. So reach out if you've had problems previously. Reach out to your solutions architect here at Delphia, and we're happy to discuss that with you and get information in your hands based on your individual situation there.
And Ron asked about any issues with ESS or what will change in ESS. We have already mentioned that ESS for Sage HRMS doesn't include the W4 support.
Yeah, or viewing of your W-2s. So when you go to the HRMS version with payroll, the tax filing is done through a service called AccPac tax filing service. And so Sage has made a decision throughout their entire organization, any of their various ERP systems or like the Sage HRMS payroll that have payroll involved, that they didn't want to have resources at each one of their business units doing tax table updates and stuff like that. So they partnered with a group called AccPac. That's all they do is tax reporting and filing. So they have a bundle package that's very attractive for groups, especially if you're in multiple states, where you'd have a single portal to go in and file and do all of your reporting. What happens is you bring it in, and when you launch the report from the HRMS reporting in payroll, it actually launches the form, and you're able to do edits on the form and then submit it electronically or print it out and submit it. But for files like your worker or your unemployment, where we've got employee information and year-end information, I'll talk about W-2s in just a minute, that actually you've got to be on the bundle to do those transmissions electronically, but it's very cost effective. You end up with one place to go instead of the multiple states if you're operating in multiple states. We don't bring W-2s into the ESS system, even though Atrix, this tax filing service, they are very economical. It's like 99 cents per employee. If your employee agrees to get it electronically, they are then sent a link to an email or to a website where they put in their credentials and they can download an electronic copy. Worst case scenario, you have employees that want to have it mailed. The cost then goes up to $1.99 per W-2 mailed. You could have a combination, 50 say we'll get it electronically, 50 we've got to print and mail. With that cost, 50 at 99 cents and 50 at $1.99, is included the year-end state and federal tax reporting. So they're going to do all of those file transmissions and do your annual reports for you. And frankly, it's just a price you just cannot beat. I did payroll for a long time, and had it been this cost-effective for us to send out to have those W-2s done, we would have jumped on it. So, but we can't bring them back into ESS because it's you as the employer can download a file, PDF copies of all of them, but we don't have an individual way to get that in there. Okay.
How about the maintenance fees? I would suspect they are certainly impacted when you go from Abra Suite to HRMS.
You know, it's not really that bad. Part of that upgrade fee is that one-time software cost. Sage has a slight increase on their annual support fees each year. I think historically the last few years it's been about 4% increase year over year. That doesn't change drastically on the HRMS. We're no longer doing those support renewals, but you know, it just doesn't. Just not a big deal there. So there's another question about W-2s. So would we no longer be able to file our own taxes and W-2s? You can print them out, okay? So for no extra charge, any of these reports that are done through Atrix, you're allowed to print them out and submit them. So you could, in fact, print them out, print them on the copy that you send into the IRS, but again, it's not an electronic file like it is in Suite. And so you could print those out, print a copy on the submission version, and that is eluding me right now. I know the W3 is the overall thing there, but there's a version that you submit to up on the federal. But you know, really, again, if you weigh it all out, cost benefit is pretty attractive to do it. Worst case scenario, $2 a W-2. I just rounded up, but $2 a W-2. That's pretty good.
And I think we have one last question about Abra Suite running on Windows 8.
I believe it does. I'd have to.
Drivers are there.
Yeah, I'd have to, Suite on Product 8 or SQL on Suite. I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, so we've got the name of the person who submitted that, and we will get that answer to you if anybody else is interested in that. They're, you know, technical documents that we can get in your hands and compatibility information as well.
Perfect. I think that's the end of the questions that I see in our Q&A room. Hopefully you have benefited from your hour with us this afternoon, where we talked about planning migrations from Abra Suite to Sage HRMS. And again, I've said it a couple times. I want to make sure you all leave with that underlying notion of don't panic. Keep calm. If you think of the British television shows and all the sayings that float around about that. Keep calm. Don't panic. Delphi is here to help you. Sage is still doing bug fixes on Sage Abra Suite. They're still doing those tattered quarterly tax updates. We have no indication when an end-of-life date for that product will hit, but they are not investing anything in new features, no new functionality, and it is on a platform that Microsoft discontinued 10 years ago. And support for that, you could buy support for that, but that discontinues from Microsoft in January, so just about 2 months away. You're also on a technology that is 10 years old, so the new SQL technology is certainly more secure. It's faster. You're going to get a better database technology. You're going to be able to find folks who know how to use that database. You're going to find third-party tools that you can use to generate reports and better integrate with even that database. The bottom line is to start thinking about it, and I strongly encourage you to reach out to your solutions architect and see if they can join the conversation. Look at where you are today, where you want to be, and as the English would say, mind the gap, so that you can start to make plans as to whether or not an upgrade to Sage HRMS is right for you and how you're going to get there. So thanks very much, Lori, for helping me right from the get-go, and Kelly Jo for jumping in here midstream. I really appreciate your help. We have recorded today's session. I believe we'll make it available on our site, and we do have a little Q&A document that we'll send to folks within the next few days who joined us on today's call. Obviously, strong interest for this. We had a couple dozen folks, which is great. With that, I'm going to bring us to